The Westwood Community Center's main hall had been transformed into an elegant celebration space for Mom's 60th surprise birthday party. Silver and gold streamers draped from the ceiling, round tables covered in white linens held centerpieces of her favorite white roses, and a professional photographer moved discreetly through the crowd capturing every moment of what my sister Caroline had planned as the perfect milestone celebration. I stood near the refreshment table at 3:30 p.m., watching 45 of Mom's closest friends and family members mingle in their Sunday best. The guest list represented 3 decades of her social network: church friends, book club members, neighbors from the subdivision, and extended family who'd traveled from 2 states to surprise the woman who'd spent 60 years being the kind of person worth celebrating. Caroline had outdone herself with the planning. She'd coordinated with everyone in Mom's circle to ensure the surprise would be complete, arranged for Mom's favorite catered sandwiches and desserts, and even hired a pianist to play background music during the afternoon celebration. Jessica. Caroline appeared beside me, radiant with the satisfaction of a surprise party executed flawlessly. "Isn't this wonderful?" Mom was completely shocked when she walked in. "Did you see her face?" "She looked genuinely surprised," I agreed. "You did an amazing job putting this together. I wanted everything to be perfect for her big day." Caroline gestured around the decorated hall. "Everyone she cares about is here, the food is delicious, and the photographer is getting some beautiful shots for her memory album." At 35, Caroline was everything my parents had hoped for in an older daughter: the successful insurance agent with the suburban house, the stable marriage to a good man, and the kind of life that made perfect sense to parents who valued conventional milestones and recognizable achievements. "Where's Paul?" I asked, looking around for her husband. "He's setting up the slideshow presentation for later. We put together 40 years of family photos. You're in quite a few from when we were kids." She smiled with the kind of warm sisterly affection that had always characterized our relationship, despite the different paths our lives had taken. "Mom keeps asking where you've been lately," Caroline continued. "She worries about you, you know." "I know she does. She just wants you to be happy and settled. The whole family does." I nodded and sipped my punch, watching Mom work the room with gracious pleasure. At 60 she was still beautiful, still had that way of making everyone feel welcomed and valued. She wore a navy dress that probably cost more than she was comfortable spending, but Caroline had convinced her that milestone birthdays justified special outfits. Jessica Thompson. Mrs. Rodriguez from Mom's book club approached with obvious warmth. "How lovely to see you, dear. Your mother talks about you all the time." "It's good to see you too, Mrs. Rodriguez. Mom speaks very fondly of your book discussions. We have such spirited debates about everything from romance novels to political biographies. Your mother has such insightful opinions." She paused meaningfully. "She's also shared how concerned she is about your situation." The word hung in the air with the weight of neighborhood gossip. "My situation? Well, you know, the challenges young people face these days: finding stable employment, building financial security, starting families." She patted my arm sympathetically. "Don't worry, dear. Life has a way of working out when you're patient and persistent." Before I could respond, Mom appeared beside us with several other book club members in tow. "Ladies," she announced, "I want you to meet my younger daughter, Jessica." The group smiled politely and I could see them taking inventory: my simple black dress, my modest jewelry, the way I stood slightly apart from the celebration's main energy. "Jessica lives downtown," Mom continued with that particular tone she used when explaining situations that required context. "She's still figuring out her career path." Mrs. Patterson nodded understandingly. "The job market is so challenging for young people nowadays." "Exactly," Mom agreed. "Jessica works with computers, some kind of freelance consulting thing. We keep hoping she'll find something more substantial." "I'm sure she will," Mrs. Chin said kindly. "Sometimes it just takes time to find your niche." The conversation continued around me while I smiled politely and let them construct their narrative. It was fascinating in an anthropological way, watching how quickly a group could build consensus around someone's perceived circumstances based on limited information and careful implications. "The important thing," Mom said, warming to her theme, "is that family supports family through difficult periods." "That's so true," Mrs. Rodriguez agreed. "Every family has members who struggle more than others." "What kind of computer work do you do, dear?" Mrs. Patterson asked directly. Before I could answer, Mom jumped in with her standard explanation. Technical consulting for small businesses. Very modern, but probably not quite the income level needed for real financial stability. The group nodded sympathetically, clearly understanding the subtext. Housing costs downtown must be challenging on a freelancer's income, Mrs. Chen observed. Jessica lives in a very small apartment, Mom said with obvious concern. One bedroom, barely any storage space. At 29, we'd hoped she might be thinking about homeownership, but she didn't need to finish the sentence. The implications were clear to everyone. The rental market is so expensive, Mrs. Patterson said supportively. Young people today face challenges our generation never had to deal with. That's exactly right, Mom agreed. Jessica's doing her best, but it's difficult watching your child struggle financially when you can't really help. The group murmured understanding while I stood there letting them dissect my apparent life challenges. The irony was becoming almost too perfect to bear. At least she has family support, Mrs. Rodriguez said warmly. That matters more than money sometimes. We try our best, Mom replied. But honestly, it's embarrassing sometimes. When people ask about our children, Caroline has so much to share, her successful career, her beautiful home, her stable marriage. With Jessica. She trailed off meaningfully. My daughter lives in poverty, she said finally, her voice dropping to what she thought was a whisper but was actually audible to half the room. We're so embarrassed by how her life has turned out. The words hung in the air like expensive perfume, present, unmistakable, and defining everything that followed. Oh, Margaret, Mrs. Patterson said with obvious sympathy. You shouldn't feel embarrassed. Every family has different struggles. What's her name again? Asked Mrs. Williams, who'd just joined the group. I might know someone who's hiring in the tech sector. Jessica Thompson, Mom said hopefully. Though I'm not sure her skills are quite up to corporate standards. Mrs. Williams was already pulling out her phone. Let me just search for tech jobs that might be appropriate for someone with basic computer skills. That's so thoughtful of you, Mom said gratefully. Mrs. Williams typed Jessica Thompson Tech into her search browser, then stared at her screen with obvious confusion. Margaret, she said slowly, are you sure we're talking about the same Jessica Thompson? What do you mean? Well, when I search for Jessica Thompson in tech, I'm getting results for someone who's the CEO of a major technology company. The group leaned in to look at her phone screen. Jessica Thompson, CEO of Quantum Dynamics, Mrs. Williams read aloud. Founded 2018, valued at $1.8 billion. Specializing in artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions. The effect was immediate and devastating. Mom's face went through several distinct phases: confusion, recognition, disbelief, and then a peculiar gray color I'd never seen before. That can't be right, she whispered. Mrs. Rodriguez had pulled out her own phone and was searching frantically. Quantum Dynamics. Jessica Thompson. Forbes 30 under 30. Oh my goodness. Mrs. Patterson was Googling as well. Businessweek profile. The AI visionary. How Jessica Thompson built a billion-dollar empire. Mrs. Chen's phone showed a different article. TechCrunch feature. Quantum Dynamics secures $400 million in Series D funding. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the pianist playing softly in the background. Jessica, Mom said, her voice barely a whisper, is that you? Are these articles about you? They are. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar technology company? I am. He stared at me like I might be an alien from another planet. But you said you did computer consulting. I do. I consult on artificial intelligence implementation strategies for Fortune 500 companies. That's how I built the business relationships that led to founding Quantum Dynamics. Mrs. Williams was still scrolling through search results. Margaret, there are hundreds of articles about your daughter. She's been featured in every major business publication in the country. She has a Wikipedia page, Mrs. Rodriguez added weakly. And a TED Talk with 12 million views, Mrs. Patterson said, staring at her phone in amazement. Mom was gripping the back of a chair like she might collapse. Jessica, why didn't you tell us about any of this? I tried to. Every time I mentioned a successful client project or a major contract, you'd redirect the conversation to when I was going to get a real job, or settle down and start a family. But you said you worked with small businesses. I said I did technical consulting. You assumed it was for small businesses because you couldn't imagine I might be working with companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and Tesla. Mrs. Chin was reading from her phone. According to this Forbes article, Jessica Thompson's AI algorithms have revolutionized autonomous vehicle development and cloud computing efficiency. Cloud computing efficiency? Mom repeated numbly. My company develops artificial intelligence systems that help other companies optimize their operations. Last year, our clients saved approximately $2.3 billion in operational costs using our AI solutions. Caroline appeared beside us, clearly sensing something dramatic was happening based on the crowd gathered around her sister and the phones everyone was staring at. What's going on? She asked. Your sister, Mrs. Rodriguez said with obvious awe, is apparently one of the most successful technology entrepreneurs in the country. Caroline looked confused. What do you mean? Mrs. Patterson turned her phone screen toward Caroline. Jessica Thompson, CEO of Quantum Dynamics. Net worth estimated at $1.2 billion. Caroline's legs gave out and she sank into the nearest chair. Jessica, she whispered, is this real? It's real. You own a billion-dollar company? The company is valued at $1.8 billion. My personal stake is worth approximately $1.2 billion, though it fluctuates with market conditions. Mom was looking around at her book club friends, all of whom were staring at our family with obvious fascination. All this time, she said, her voice getting stronger, all this time I've been telling everyone you were struggling financially. I know. I said you lived in poverty. I said I was embarrassed by how your life turned out. I know. How can you forgive that? I looked around at the group of women who'd spent the last 15 minutes constructing an elaborate narrative about my supposed failures while I stood there letting them. Because you said it out of love, even if it was misguided love. You were worried about my future, not trying to hurt me. Mrs. Williams cleared her throat. Jessica, I have to ask, if you're this successful, why do you live so simply? The small apartment, the modest clothes. I live simply because I prefer it that way. My downtown loft is actually the penthouse of a converted warehouse I own, but it's still just one bedroom because I don't need more space. And I dress modestly because I'd rather be judged on my ideas than my outfit choices. But the financial struggles your mother mentioned were never real. Mom assumed I was struggling because I wasn't spending money on things she considered important: expensive cars, designer clothes, suburban houses, traditional lifestyle markers. I pulled an envelope from my purse and handed it to Mom. What's this? She asked nervously. Your birthday present. Ownership papers for the beach house in North Carolina that you and Dad have been dreaming about for 20 years. She opened the envelope with shaking hands and stared at the property deed. Jessica, this must have cost millions. It doesn't matter what it cost. What matters is that you and Dad have a place where you can be happy together. But after everything I said today, all those things about poverty and embarrassment. Mom, you said those things because you love me and you were genuinely worried about my future. You were wrong about the facts, but your intentions came from the right place. Mrs. Rodriguez was still reading articles on her phone. Margaret, your daughter has been profiled in Harvard Business Review, featured on the cover of Fortune magazine, and invited to speak at the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum? Mom asked weakly. I spoke about the future of AI in healthcare last year. It's actually how I met several clients who are now implementing our systems in hospitals worldwide. Caroline finally found her voice. Jessica, I feel like I don't know you at all. You know me perfectly well. I'm the same person who's always been interested in mathematics and computer science. The same person who spent college building software applications that solved real-world problems. The same person who's been trying to share professional excitement with family members who weren't interested in technical details. We thought you were failing, Mom said, tears starting to form in her eyes. You thought I was failing because my success didn't look the way you expected it to. I don't own a suburban house, I'm not married with children, I don't drive an expensive car or wear designer clothes. So you assumed I must be struggling. Mrs. Patterson spoke up. Jessica, what made you choose technology entrepreneurship over a more traditional career path? I wanted to solve problems that would help millions of people. AI systems that make healthcare more efficient, transportation safer, and business operations more sustainable. You can't do that kind of work within traditional corporate structures. You need the freedom to innovate without bureaucratic limitations. And the financial success? Was a byproduct of building solutions that genuinely helped people. When you create technology that saves companies billions of dollars, they're willing to pay substantial licensing fees. Mom was looking around the room at her friends, all of whom were now staring at me with obvious admiration instead of the sympathetic pity they'd shown 15 minutes earlier. I told all these people you were living in poverty, she said. I know. I said I was embarrassed by how you'd turned out. I know. How are you not angry with me? Because being angry would be exhausting and ultimately pointless. You made assumptions based on limited information and your own definitions of success. Now you have better information. Caroline stood up and hugged me tightly. Jessica, I'm so sorry. We've been completely blind to what you were accomplishing. You've been focused on your own life and your own version of success. There's nothing wrong with that. But we missed everything. All those years of you building this incredible company while we worried about your apartment and your car are behind us now. What matters is moving forward with better understanding. Mrs. Rodriguez approached us with obvious embarrassment. Jessica, I owe you an apology. We all do. We made assumptions about your life based on appearances instead of asking real questions. You don't owe me anything. You were trying to be supportive based on the information you had. But we judged you. You cared about my mother's concerns and tried to offer encouragement. That's actually very kind. As the afternoon continued, the entire dynamic of Mom's surprise party shifted. Her book club friends wanted to understand how AI worked, ask about women in technology, and hear about my experiences as a young entrepreneur. The conversations became genuinely interesting instead of the polite social dancing that had characterized the earlier gathering. Most importantly, Mom seemed to see me clearly for the first time in years. Not as the daughter who was struggling to find her way, but as the person who'd found her own path and built something meaningful along it. Later that evening, as I sat in my downtown penthouse looking out at the city lights, I reflected on how dramatically the day had changed. A simple Google search had transformed me from the family's cautionary tale into someone worthy of respect and admiration. But the real transformation wasn't in how others saw me. It was in finally having the chance to share my actual life with people who could appreciate what I'd built. The technology company worth $1.8 billion was impressive, but the most valuable thing I owned wasn't visible on any search results. It was a family relationship rebuilt on truth instead of assumptions, worth more than any business valuation could ever be.